I like the shock value on some. Like, where's Abe's fish? Just all of a sudden, so you're reading Abe's fish, you're reading about Abe Lincoln as a young child, and then all of a sudden, you turn the last page and it's Abe Lincoln as an adult.
Yes.
And it's just, it's shocking, but it's also, so you've been studying this little boy, reading about this little boy, and you may not just really be connecting him with the man. And then all of a sudden on the last page, there he is.
And if you know anything about Abraham Lincoln,
they've seen pictures of him.
Yeah.
And it's just like all of a sudden, it's the climax. It's the picture is the climax.
Right.
And, again, just paying attention to the detail. I mean, what is the sentence in that book? Freedom must be a really important thing.
Yes.
Right?
But he hasn't.
And so
yes.
That's a huge topic for a kindergartner. But it's not too early to learn the word.
That's
and
right.
That was important to Abe Lincoln.
Well, and that's part of the theme here is that he was intrigued by a word he didn't understand that made all the difference to him.
And then
in later life.
Go out, they're looking, are they going to see an owl? Are they going to?
And that's a beautiful book. I mean, the illustrations in this are just gorgeous.
And then you get to this picture
of an owl.
For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes. We stared at each other. And there's the owl staring at you.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 4th grade, when they're doing birds and they're learning owl sounds, I mean, they have already been acquainted.
She means 5th grade.
5th grade, sorry. In an intimate way with an experience with an owl.
Right.
Even if they haven't gone owling, they can vicariously go owling in this book. And when they encounter owls, maybe there's a new spark there and an interest in owls. I mean, and so we didn't necessarily say, oh, there's going to be owls. We didn't plan that strategically. But looking at the whole, we can, see that those are opportunities to connect to things.
It's so good to have you with us on this episode of Novel Thoughts. It was a lot of fun putting this episode together for you, and we hope it helps you on your literary journey. If you do enjoy our show, we'd love for you to let us know by liking and commenting down below. And if you like Memoria Press and the things we're doing here, join us by subscribing by hitting that button right there. Thanks so much, and let's get back to the episode. Well, I think all these powers of observation that you're instilling and developing in these children, I mean, when they get to Latin declensions and they have to be able to observe the differences and to make distinctions about things, you start that by teaching them to look at a book.
That's right.
And see what picture, what's different here, what's going on.
That's right. And that's, a lot of these books, I kind of, again, it's so fun to go back to these books because we've been living in the older books for a while now. But I mean, these authors are brilliant. I mean, the literary devices that they're using, I mean, the way that they're introducing repetition in these books or the way that they're introducing comparison and contrast in these books and alliteration and onomatopoeia. And I mean, this is where those students are getting those introductory ideas and they're getting them in such beautiful, cohesive ways, I think.
Well, and look at Hubert. That entire, there's a lot of words in that book and it's all rhyme.
Yes.
Right.
It's like one giant poem.
Right.
It's like an epic poem.
Those are the best ones. I remember being a tired mother and saying, okay, children, you can pick any book, but make sure it rhymes because somehow it's a little less taxing on the tired mother to read the rhyming book. So, but Hubert's great too. You said you love Hubert.
I love
Why did you love Hubert?
I had not, so I didn't grow up with all of these myself.
Right.
I was a reader growing up, but I had never read Hubert's Hair-Raising Adventure until very recently in preparation for this. And it was one of those that just made me smile the whole time. I just couldn't stop smiling. To talk about the illustration of it, it's just beautiful illustration. The emotions on each of the animals' faces are just wonderful.
They are.
It's so...
Right. The characters are so...
They're so real
right.
and they're so funny. But that's another thing that I think we want to talk about is that these books provide so much humor.
Right.
Humor, but also in this particular book, it's also about courage.
Yes.
This elephant going to the crocodile and I just love
tricking
it when he says,
maybe accidentally, but he still tricks him.
And he stopped for a second, one moment of dread.
Yes.
Then he thought of poor Hubert and forged on ahead.
Yes.
Right. And it's just that overcoming fear for the sake of a friend. What a huge lesson.
Hubert made me think of Pride and Prejudice, which we've been reading recently again. And there's a great quote in Pride and Prejudice differentiating pride and vanity.
Right.
And so Hubert, I mean, having just read, let's see if I can get it. Austin says, pride and vanity are often used synonymously, but they're different things. And pride is how we think of ourselves, and vanity is how we would have others think of us. And so, even just going back to that and thinking, well, that is an important distinction. We use the word pride, probably erroneously when we mean vanity, and just, thinking about the connotations of words and just really, introducing to the young student, you don't have to talk about pride and prejudice. You don't have to talk about the distinction between pride and vanity, but you can use the right word when when you're talking about Hubert and saying that this is vanity. It's not necessarily pride,
And that can help you make sense of some of the ending, because if you just think of, you read at the beginning that he was due for a fall because of his pride, but then he's still kind of prideful at the end. So how do you resolve that? You do that by actually asking these questions.
Yeah, and and
thinking about these words and what they mean.
That's right. And pride before a fall is a huge theme that we talk about all the time. So
yes,
with the parent or the teacher kind of knowing this stuff in the back of your mind, you can, I think, draw some of this stuff out for the student
on a level where they are. I mean, Hubert's funny.
Right.
That's right.
But it is
Start with
also
the humor.
about pride, and it is also about courage.
Right.
But it's all tied into this lovely little story that students can relate to. And they're going to enjoy it, and we're going to just work those things in a little bit.
One of my favorite experiences in preparing for this was realizing that these read alouds, yes, children's books do this as well, where they kind of get you into the mindset of a child. And the best children's books really tell the story from the child's perspective. But I was reading How to Make an Apple Pie and See the World, and I, again, couldn't stop smiling because, of course, you begin the book asking how do you make an apple pie, and the little girl goes to the market's closed. So the next logical thing to do is to go to Europe to get everything that you need. And just the whimsy of that, the whimsy of the childlike sense of that's the next best thing to do is just so great. So
and that one has beautiful illustrations.
It does. You appreciate the art.
And two things about that. First, that book is great because it kind of opens your eyes to, how difficult it is to truly get the ingredients for an apple pie. I mean, this is something that we take for granted all the time, right? I mean, just appreciating the things that are everyday to us that are pretty phenomenal, that they are available to us. I think that's a great one in that one. But then also when you're talking about, the child's perspective and the adult perspective, and just seeing things on two tiers, that makes me think of The Extraordinary Egg, which is a great, it's so funny because, because of the disconnect between the the
what
reality
and
it's like so silly that this is an alligator. That they said alligator. And so it makes me think of the Moffats, right? Where the narrator is talking kind of with an adult perspective of what's going on, and the humor from the adult knowledge through a child's voice and a child's perspective. And so, the gap in those two perceptions really contribute to the humor. And that's what's happening here, I think, in An Extraordinary Egg.
Oh, absolutely.
They're just so confident. But it's also a book about friendship.
Right.
We've been having this conversation. This is our perspective. This is what we're enjoying about as adults. But what do you do? How do you instill this in your children, this love for these read alouds?
The important thing for the child is for the child to appreciate the book. And so we don't want to put all these burdens on the child to do these heavy things. We want the child to delight in these beautiful books. And so I think the main thing we want to do is just make good decisions about the books that we're feeding our children. Read in pleasant ways, so that reading is, a positive, enjoyable experience for the family. But slow down and add patience to the experience. And talk about the words, notice the pictures. We don't have any particular insights in these books. Our families are going to be doing the exact same things all that you need is time. All that you need is time and an interest in these books, and you're going to draw out your own interesting, valuable insights in these books. It just takes a slow approach, I think.
And your children are going to choose their favorite ones.
That's right.
That's right.
Allow them to choose that.
That's right.
Read
That's
it,
right.
read it, read
That's
it.
right.
And they're going to, some of them you're going to love and they may not. I mean, I loved Winnie the Pooh and my kids just really did not. But I read Winnie the Pooh to them for myself, trying to instill a love. Why wouldn't you love Winnie the Pooh? But they didn't, but they loved some of these, and they loved other things. But the thing is, then we would end up reading what they loved over and over and over again, rather than maybe. That's why I love this, having one book a week that you're concentrated on, because maybe you don't love it the first time, but I bet by the end of a week, when you've read it and talked about it every day for a week, that it always
Some
will be
value.
something special. Yes. But I think the last thing I would want to say about all of this is not to feel intimidated by any of the, what we've talked about here about pride and courage and all of these things that we're bringing out. We're not thrusting those giant things on children. We're just reading the books. As
That's right.
adults,
That's right.
We're seeing the value of what they're getting. But for the student, it really is just an introduction to thinking about
That's right.
what it would be like to be really afraid if you were going to try to get an alligator's tears.
Or go out.
And be
and-
able
That's
to
right.
overcome that fear for the sake of your friend or a family member. We're not, it's all fantasy. This is all a fantasy world. Or to think about where your food is coming from. So we're not going to have them make charts of what all needed to happen in order to have the ingredients for an apple pie, but we're planting the seed for that. That was not a pun intended.
You can do that pun. Yeah.
But we are planting the seed for them recognizing that their food, there's a big process. Pancakes does that. That process of all that you would have to go through to make one pancake.
Yeah. And I think, you just keep reading. The reason we're having this conversation and can outline some of these themes is because we didn't stop reading. We just kept on. So don't feel overwhelmed. Pick up the next book.
Yeah,
That's right.